Well, now it's the whole notion of credibility and moving forward with what is very much in the minds of the South Korean Blue House. They really hold all the pieces. They're the ones who had the direct access to Kim Jong-un. The South Korean delegation, headed by National Security Advisor Jong and the National Intelligence Service Director Seo, were the two main protagonists here. And this comes in the aftermath of what took place in Washington with this dramatic meeting with President Trump. But in terms of moving forward and getting all the pieces coordinated, that is a large task. But we've got two dates now. The first is the Inter-Korean Summit, which will happen in late April, and then the meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un in May.
They have to coordinate all the pieces. They have to bring all the players on board, including China. Is China on board when it comes to the issue of pressure? Do you think it's starting to believe that, yes, more pressure works in regards to North Korea?
I think now it's the bigger focus on the diplomatic off-ramp. Last year, China put a lot of emphasis in something called the dual freeze. Yeah. North Korea would freeze its nuclear weapons and ballistic missile testing. In return, the U.S. and South Korea would freeze its military exercises. In many respects, the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, we had an ad hoc freeze, double freeze. And so going forward, in that respect, I think it's in the Chinese interest to see this type of freeze type of situation continue. But what this manifests into, that's a big part about the game plan and process, and we have little details of it at this particular point in time. Yeah. And I think the area of concern for a lot of colleagues is this area that the summit usually comes at the very end of a process. If it were denuclearization, normalization of relations, verification of full denuclearization on the North Korean side, and then you get a summit. And so the fact to have it front-loaded is a source of concern in the sense that we don't see evidence or the pieces of a game plan.
Do you think Kim Jong-un sees it's a win? The meeting is a concession. He won.
Well, in terms of the rapidity in which this happened, I think there is a source of surprise, and even for the North Korean side, what one would imagine. The details are coming out in terms of this meeting that took place with National Security Advisor Jong and President Trump in the Oval Office. And how quickly it took place is really breathtaking. So this is an era of alliteration. I think one way to view it is that it was shocking and stunning. And with that, I think this idea of trying to ground back to reality and see what the next steps hold in store, in many respects, we're seeing a retroactive development of a game plan. There's been initial discussion of conditions. There's been a dialing back of that by other officials in the White House. But you get to see post, decision to do the summit, this idea now, what will the game plan look like?
Does the Trump administration need a special envoy to get ready for these talks, and who should that person be?
Sure. My senior colleagues have been calling for the appointment of a senior presidential envoy. In terms of candidates, there is an inclination to designate a general. But I think here also there's a call for the idea of a Korea expert can navigate all the nuances of this very complex, in many respects, legacy type of issues that remain with us. But that remains to be seen. But that, I think, would be a first very positive signal than building around a team. And as I mentioned, the development of a process and a game plan.
And Kim Jong-un, why did he offer these face-to-face talks with Donald Trump? Because there are a lot of different theories out there. Some people believe he is desperate. Others believe he is confident. Your thoughts?
That is a big source of debate. Is this coming from a place of desperation or confidence? It looks like it's coming from a place of opportunity. And certainly there are risks, but this is about risk management. And I think in terms of the meeting that took place with the South Korean delegation, some of that risk looks like it's managed and mitigated. But right now, we have to view this with, I think, the grain of caution in the sense that we still have not received official word from the North Korean side about any of the details that have been discussed and conveyed by the South Korean side to the U.S. side. So I think there are some prerequisites that we need to see confirmed here, but there is a sense of hope that this could be something that could turn into a larger process.
And at the core of these talks, the issue of denuclearization. But at the end of the day, is Kim Jong-un willing to give up his arsenal?
That's a big question. I think the idea of a process of denuclearization where there would be some aspects of measured movements by both sides building up to this trust, it's a similar type of discussion that we've heard in the past. One thing that's interesting is a discussion about what could be a concrete action leading up to the May summit and maybe afterward. Interestingly, in June, we'll hit the 10th anniversary of the demolition of the cooling tower at the Yongbyon nuclear complex in North Korea. That was an important part of something called nuclear disablement as the six-party talks were going on. If we see some revisiting of nuclear disablement, that would be physical destruction of an element of the North Korean nuclear complex. I think visually that would be an important step of showing commitment and seriousness here. But unless we hear more about these kind of details, again, it'll sound like commitments on paper, but we need to see what will eventually be carried through.